I was in the kitchen making soup when my mother-in-law cracked me over the head with a heavy steel ladle. "What is this slop? It looks like cat puke." "You useless woman," she screamed. My husband, in the other room, just turned up the volume on the TV, pretending not to hear a thing. 5 minutes later, a tremendous crash shook the entire house. My husband and his mother came running into the kitchen. They both froze, staring in horror at what I had done. Before this story really begins, if you're watching this, please drop a comment and let me know what state you're from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can keep growing and bring you more incredible stories. A delicate steam rose from the silver stockpot on the stove. Nora stirred the thick liquid within, the scent of chicken broth and herbs filling the spacious, modern kitchen. The simple headband holding her hair back felt slightly damp at the nape of her neck from the heat, but Nora was used to it. She was making creamy chicken and wild rice soup, her husband Ethan's favorite. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. Supposed to be. But quiet was a luxury in this house, a house that should have been her sanctuary but felt more like a cold, glittering prison. From the living room, the canned laughter of a sitcom echoed. Ethan was relaxing on the couch, his feet propped up on the glass coffee table. Nora sighed softly, trying to ignore the ache spreading across her back. She'd just gotten home from work, but there was no time to rest. Carol, her mother-in-law, demanded to be served. Ever since Carol had moved in with them 3 years ago, Nora's life had become a daily test of her patience. Every move was watched, every action criticized. Nora tried to swallow it all for Ethan's sake. She loved her husband. At least, she loved the man she used to know, before his mother arrived and poisoned his mind. The sound of heavy footsteps approached. Nora didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The temperature in the kitchen seemed to drop. Carol stood in the doorway, her arms crossed over her chest. Her wrinkled face was perpetually sour, as if she'd just smelled something rotten. Her eyes shot a venomous look at Nora, then shifted to the pot. "What are you making?" she asked, her voice sharp and grating. "Creamy chicken and wild rice soup, Carol." Nora answered gently, trying to keep her voice steady. She reached for a small tasting bowl, intending to let her mother-in-law try it. Carol strode forward. She didn't wait for Nora to serve her. The old woman snatched a large stainless steel ladle from the counter. She plunged it into the pot, scooped out a bit of the soup, and slurped it down noisily. Her face immediately twisted in disgust. "Tasteless. Too thick. Is this soup or glue?" she snapped. "I can add a little more broth, Carol." "And the salt." Before Nora could finish, a hard impact slammed into the side of her head. Nora stumbled, a sharp, throbbing pain exploding behind her temple. The small bowl in her hand crashed to the marble floor, shattering into a dozen pieces. The heavy ladle Carol had just used was now on the floor near Nora's feet, droplets of hot soup spattering the tile in her jeans. Nora clutched her head, the world spinning. "What is this slop? It looks like cat puke." "You useless woman," Carol shrieked, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Marrying my son and you're nothing but a burden. Can't cook, can't do anything right. Just a drain on Ethan's money." Nora stared at her mother-in-law, the stinging pain on her temple mixing with a much deeper ache in her heart. She was used to the insults, but the thrown ladle was new. A line had been crossed. "Carol, why did you throw that at me?" Nora asked, her voice trembling. "Because you deserved it. You're lazy and incompetent." From the living room, the sitcom's laugh track suddenly blared, significantly louder. Ethan had turned up the volume. He was pretending not to hear. He was deliberately ignoring his mother's screams and the sound of the shattering bowl. He chose to hide behind the noise of a comedy show, leaving his wife to be verbally and now physically assaulted in her own kitchen. Something inside Nora snapped. The final, frayed thread of patience she had been clinging to for 3 years broke. The pain in her head faded, replaced by a cold, hollow emptiness. She looked at Carol, who was still spewing hateful words. She heard the roaring TV from the living room. She saw the broken ceramic on the floor. She saw the soup she had carefully prepared now spilled and wasted. For 3 years, she had been silent. She had held back. She had tried to be a good wife and a good daughter-in-law. She had conceded, apologized even when she wasn't wrong, and cried silently in the bathroom, all to preserve a marriage that was clearly an illusion. Her husband, the man who had promised to protect her, had just shown her that she was worth nothing at all. Nora dropped her hand from her head. She stood up straight. Her eyes, normally soft, fixed on Carol, with a look the old woman had never seen before. A look that was cold, empty, and final. "What are you looking at? You want to start something?" Carol barked, slightly taken aback by Nora's change in demeanor. Nora didn't answer. She turned and walked out of the kitchen, past the living room. Ethan glanced at her over the back of the sofa. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Ethan quickly looked away, feigning intense interest in the TV screen. Nora kept walking. She wasn't going to her bedroom to cry. She walked straight to the small tool shed next to the garage, a place where Ethan kept his DIY project equipment. Her hand closed around a heavy object with a long wooden handle. A sledgehammer, the big one he used for breaking up old concrete. Nora gripped the handle tightly. She walked back into the house, back to the kitchen. 5 minutes had passed since the ladle hit her head. Carol was still in the kitchen, grumbling as she wiped the ladle clean, probably intending to use it again. "My son is too good for her. He should have married a woman who..." Carol's voice died in her throat. She saw Nora re-enter the kitchen, carrying the sledgehammer. Carol's eyes widened in terror. "Nora, what are you doing? Are you insane?" Nora said nothing. She walked straight to the kitchen island. It was the centerpiece of the room, a massive slab of imported Italian marble, white with elegant gray veining. It had cost a fortune, tens of thousands of dollars. It was Carol's pride and joy. The old woman constantly bragged about it to her bridge club friends, claiming Ethan had bought it for her. Nora lifted the sledgehammer high over her head. With all her strength, she brought it down on the center of the marble island. The deafening crack echoed through the house, far louder than Ethan's TV. The sound of thick marble fracturing and shattering was horrific. "No!" Carol shrieked. Nora raised the hammer again. And again. And again. She smashed the marble without mercy. Each blow was a release for every insult, every tear, every second of neglect she had endured. Chunks of marble flew through the air. White dust filled the room. She didn't stop until the beautiful, expensive island was a pile of rubble. A shapeless ruin. The TV in the living room abruptly went silent. Panicked footsteps pounded on the hardwood floor. "Nora! What the hell is going on?" Ethan ran into the kitchen, followed by Carol, who was now hysterically sobbing at the doorway. They both froze. They stared at a scene they could never have imagined. Their kitchen, the heart of their home, was destroyed. And in the middle of the destruction stood Nora. Her headband was slightly askew, a smudge of soup on her cheek, her hands still gripping the sledgehammer. She was breathing heavily. Not from exhaustion, but from the release of a tidal wave of suppressed emotion. You're crazy, Nora!" Ethan yelled, his eyes bulging as he stared at the ruins of an island that cost as much as a luxury car. "You're going to pay for this! You'll pay for all of this!" Carol shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Nora. "Crazy! My son, look at your wife! She's possessed! She's destroyed our home!" Nora finally lowered the sledgehammer. She looked at Ethan, then at Carol. A small, dry, cold laugh escaped her lips. A laugh that made the hair on Ethan and Carol's arms stand on end. "Pay for it?" Nora asked, her voice raspy but firm. "Pay for it with whose money, Ethan? Your money? Our home?" Nora's gaze shifted to Carol. "Whose home do you think this is?" Ethan and Carol exchanged confused glances, still too stunned by the devastation. Nora let the sledgehammer fall to the floor with a loud clang. She walked past them, deliberately bumping Ethan's shoulder. She didn't care anymore. "You said I was useless," Nora said, walking toward the study on the second floor. "You said I was just a burden." Ethan and Carol followed behind her, still shouting. "Nora, explain yourself. You have to replace it," Ethan yelled. Call the police, Ethan. Have her arrested. Carol screeched. Nora ignored them. She kept walking. She knew exactly what she had to do next. The chapter of her suffering was over. The chapter of her revenge had just begun. Nora opened the door to her home office. The room was immaculate, a stark contrast to the chaos she had just created downstairs. Ethan and Carol stopped at the threshold, not daring to enter. They watched as Nora calmly walked to a sturdy oak filing cabinet. She unlocked a drawer and pulled out a thick blue folder. She held the folder to her chest for a moment, taking a deep breath. This was her weapon, something she had prepared long ago, just in case this day ever came. And today, it had come. What is that? What are you getting? Ethan asked, his tone now laced with anxiety. He was beginning to sense that something was terribly wrong. Nora turned, her face a mask of cold composure. There were no more tears, no more fear, only a chilling relief. She walked out of the office and back down the stairs, Ethan and Carol trailing her like two confused dogs. She returned to the kitchen. The marble debris was still everywhere. Nora walked to the largest pile of rubble and tossed the blue folder on top of it. You asked me who would pay for this. Ethan, Nora said, her voice echoing in the ruined kitchen. You asked whose house this is, Carol. Carol stepped forward, trying to regain her bluster. Of course this is my son's house. Ethan worked hard to buy all of this. Nora laughed again, louder this time. Worked hard? Ethan, don't make me laugh. Nora pointed to the blue folder on the pile of rubble. Open it. Read it. Ethan hesitated. He carefully stepped over the marble shards and picked up the folder. He opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. The anger on his face drained away, replaced by a deathly pallor. This is impossible, Ethan hissed, his hands beginning to shake. What is it, son? What did that crazy woman write? Carol demanded, trying to snatch the papers from him. Ethan was speechless. He could only stare at Nora, in utter horror. Nora answered for him. That is the deed to this house. That is the title to this land. That is the proof of payment in full. She stepped closer and pulled a single sheet from Ethan's hand. And, let's see, she said, holding it up in front of Carol's face. Whose name is on here? She pointed to the name clearly printed on the line. Nora Almira. My name. Not Ethan's name. Not Carol Widge's name. Carol squinted, reading the name. Her jaw dropped. Lies! This must be fake! You tricked my son! Fake? Nora smiled wryly. Feel free to check with any notary or county clerk. This house. Nora spread her arms wide. All the furniture in it, the 2 cars in the garage, even the ladle you threw at my head. I bought it all. Paid in full, with my own money, the inheritance from my late father. The truth hit Ethan and Carol like the sledgehammer that had just destroyed the island. I bought it 3 months before we got married, Ethan. Back when you were still begging your parents for a down payment on a tiny condo. I bought it with cash. I was a fool. I was too in love. I agreed when you said we should tell everyone it was your house, so you would look like a great head of the household. Ethan took a step back. Nora, honey, I can explain. This is all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Nora's eyes burned into him. A misunderstanding that for 3 years you two have been living off me? A misunderstanding that you drive my cars? A misunderstanding that you eat food bought with my money? While your salary barely covers your coffee and cigarettes? Watch your mouth, Nora! Ethan snapped, trying to reclaim some authority, but his voice cracked. Why? Are you embarrassed? Nora challenged. Are you embarrassed that the truth is you're a parasite? And you? Nora turned to the now silent Carol. Are the parasite's mother, insulting me in my own house, eating the food I bought, and then attacking me with a utensil I also paid for. Carol tried to defend herself. But Ethan is still your husband. What's yours is his. What kind of law is that? The law of the jungle you made up? Nora shook her head. I'm not that stupid. My father made sure I was protected. We have a prenuptial agreement. All assets I owned before the marriage remain mine. And this house is one of them. A dead silence fell over the kitchen, broken only by their ragged breathing. Ethan looked at his wife as if seeing her for the first time. The gentle, hijab-wearing woman who always looked down and said yes was gone. Just then, the doorbell rang. Ethan and Carol jumped. "Who is that?" Ethan asked, panicking. "Did you call the police?" "No," Nora said calmly. "I called my lawyer and a couple of security officers." As Nora walked calmly to the front door and opened it. A middle-aged man in a sharp suit and glasses entered. Behind him stood two burly men in dark blue security uniforms. "Good evening, Miss Elmira," the man in the suit said, his voice calm and professional. He glanced briefly at the destroyed kitchen without a flicker of surprise. "As per your instructions. Lawyer? Security?" Ethan stared at the man in horror. "What is the meaning of this?" "Nora," the lawyer, Mr. Davies, walked to the center of the living room. He opened his briefcase and took out a document. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Whittier," Mr. Davies said. "I am Daniel Davies, Miss Elmira's attorney. I'm here to officially serve you with this." He handed the letter to Ethan. Ethan read it, his eyes widening. "An eviction notice," he whispered in disbelief. "That's right," Nora said from behind him. "You are no longer residents of this house. You are uninvited guests." "You can't do this!" Carol shrieked. "This is my son's house! We're not leaving!" She tried to lunge at Nora, but the two security officers moved instantly, blocking her path. Their solid, intimidating presence was a clear message. "Ma'am, please remain calm," one of the officers said. "You have 1 hour," Nora stated, her voice as cold as ice. "Pack your personal belongings. Clothes, toothbrushes, anything you actually bought with your own money, if there is anything. Nora, please, don't do this, honey." Ethan tried his old tactics. He reached for Nora's hand. "We can talk about this. Mom is just stressed. I apologize on her behalf. Nora snatched her hand away. "Don't call me honey. And don't touch me. I waited 3 years for you to talk about this. I waited 3 years for you to defend me. 5 minutes ago, you had a chance. You chose to turn up the TV instead of helping your wife who had just been assaulted with a ladle. You made your choice, Ethan." Ethan's face went white. The gravity of his inaction finally hit him. 1 hour, Nora repeated. "After that, Mr. Davies will file for divorce on my behalf first thing in the morning. And these two gentlemen," Nora gestured to the security guards, "will be more than happy to escort you off my property, by force, if necessary." Carol finally realized this was not a bluff. She collapsed onto the sofa, defeated. All the luxury she flaunted, all the social status she bragged about, had vanished in an instant. "Go on, Ethan. Pack your things," Nora said. "Or would you rather leave with only the clothes on your back?" Ethan stared at Nora with a mixture of hatred, fear, and shock. He was speechless. He had been completely and utterly outplayed. As they both scrambled in a panic, Nora walked back to the kitchen. She looked at the marble ruins. She had no regrets. It was a small price to pay for freedom. As she watched Carol and Ethan run to their rooms to pack, Nora allowed herself a small, thin smile. But one thing bothered her. In their panic, Nora had caught a brief, whispered exchange between them. A panicked whisper from Ethan to his mother. "Mom, what about the thing?" "It's still in the safe. We have to get it." Nora frowned. "Safe? Which safe?" As far as she knew, there was only one safe in the house in her office, and it was hers. 1 hour. The time seemed to fly by for Ethan and Carol, but it dragged on for Nora. She sat calmly on the living room sofa, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Next to her, Mr. Davies sat upright, his briefcase at his side. The two security officers flanked the front door, their posture unyielding. From upstairs came the sounds of chaos drawers being slammed, closet doors being yanked open, frantic footsteps. In the master bedroom, the room Nora once shared with Ethan, Carol was ransacking Nora's jewelry boxes. "My son bought all of this!" "You said these were gifts for me," Carol muttered to herself, stuffing necklaces and bracelets into her handbag. "Mom, don't take Nora's things. She could sue us for theft." Ethan yelled in a panic. He was busy throwing his designer shirts into a large suitcase, no longer caring about folding them. "Theft? It's my son's right. He provided for that useless woman." Carol moved to the vanity, sweeping expensive perfumes into her bag. Ethan ran his hands through his hair in frustration. How did this happen? The meek, gentle woman he had trampled on for years, the woman who would cry if he raised his voice, had turned into a lioness. He never imagined Nora had this kind of weapon. A prenup. The house in her name. All this time, he thought Nora was just some rich, naive girl, easily controlled by love. He had been so wrong. Nora, or perhaps her late father, was far smarter than he'd ever imagined. With 30 minutes left, Ethan knew he had to try one last time. Seduction and pity had always been his best weapons. He ran down the stairs and saw Nora, sitting like a queen on her throne. "Nora," he called, his voice deliberately hoarse with regret. Nora looked up, her eyes cold and unreadable. Ethan dropped to his knees in front of her, ignoring the stares of Mr. Davies and the guards. He tried to take her hands, but she pulled them away. "Honey, please, don't be like this," Ethan pleaded. "I know I was wrong. I was so wrong. I should have stood up for you. But you know how Mom is. I just didn't want to make things worse." Nora remained silent. "I love you, Nora. I love you so much," Ethan continued, tears welling in his eyes. "He was a great actor. This is all because of my mother. She's the one who kept poisoning my mind, forcing me to be hard on you. Deep down, I was suffering every time I saw her yell at you." "Really?" Nora's voice finally came, quiet but piercing. "You were suffering so much that you had to turn the TV volume up so you couldn't hear your own suffering." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. He had no answer. 3 years, Ethan," Nora said. "Not 3 days. For 3 years I endured the insults. For 3 years I hoped my husband would defend me just once. But you never did. You always chose your mother. You always chose your own comfort. You hid behind your mother like a little boy. I'll change, Nora, I promise. Just give me one more chance. We'll kick my mother out. We'll live together. Just the two of us. Like we used to." Ethan begged. "There is no us anymore," Nora replied firmly. "And the before you're talking about never existed. There was only me, you, and your mother, who you secretly allowed to devour me alive." Ethan realized his pleas were failing. His face hardened. "So this is it? You're just going to throw me out after everything I've given you?" Nora almost laughed. "What have you given me? Besides heartbreak and a place to stay at your mother's house before we moved into mine?" At that moment, Carol came downstairs, dragging 2 large suitcases and an overstuffed handbag. Her face was red with fury. "That's enough, Ethan! There's no use begging this she-devil," she snapped. She glared at Nora with pure hatred. "You think you've won? You think you're so great? Kicking us out?" Nora simply raised an eyebrow. "Don't be so smug, Nora," Carol hissed. "We may be leaving, but we know your secrets. You think we don't know about your late father's investments? You think all your money is clean, huh?" It was a threat. Carol was fishing for leverage. Nora felt her heart skip a beat, but she quickly composed herself. Her father had been an honest businessman. This was a bluff. "Go ahead," Nora replied casually. "Report me to the IRS if you have proof. Whatever my secrets are, they pale in comparison to the fact that you are 2 parasites who have been living off me. And now, your time is almost up." Carol was out of words. Her bluff had failed. "You're going to regret this, Nora!" Ethan yelled, now on his feet. His face of regret was gone, replaced by rage. "You will regret doing this to me and my mother." "Time's up," Mr. Davies said, looking at his watch. He signaled to the two security officers. Sir, ma'am, let us escort you out. Don't touch me. I can walk myself, Carol snapped, yanking her suitcases. Ethan grabbed his bag roughly. As he walked past Nora, he paused. This isn't over, Nora, he whispered menacingly. Nora stared straight ahead, unmoved. As Ethan and Carol were in the hallway heading for the door, in a final moment of panic, Ethan grabbed his mother's arm. He whispered very quietly, thinking no one could hear. Mom, what about the thing? It's still in the safe. We can't leave it, Carol hissed back in a panic. Damn it. That woman is watching us. Don't worry, we'll find a way to get it back later. She'll never find that spot. They didn't realize that in the corner of the ceiling, a tiny black dot was hidden inside a smoke detector. A miniature camera. Nora, who had been staring straight ahead, was actually watching a live feed on her phone in her lap. She heard every word clearly through the camera's sensitive microphone. She had installed it last week, suspecting Ethan was stealing cash from her wallet while she slept. She never imagined it would capture something so much bigger. Safe. The thing. The words echoed in her mind. The security officers opened the front door. Ethan and Carol walked out, dragging their suitcases down the stone walkway. A few neighbors, alerted by the earlier commotion, peeked from behind their curtains. The sight of a man and his mother being evicted from a luxury home was a rare spectacle. The door closed and was locked. A profound silence enveloped the house. Nora let out a long, slow breath. The weight she had carried for 3 years was finally lifted. But she knew this wasn't over. Ethan's whisper was proof that there was another secret hidden in this house. A secret they thought was safe. The silence in the house was heavy and unfamiliar, the lingering smell of the spilled soup mixed with the dust from the shattered marble. Mr. Davies cleared his throat. Miss Almira, what are your next steps? I'll file the divorce petition first thing in the morning. As for the destruction of the kitchen island, leave it for now, Mr. Davies. Nora interrupted. That ruin is a reminder for me. There's something more urgent. Very well. I'll take my leave. The security team will remain posted outside the gate tonight to ensure they don't return. Please call me if you need anything. After Mr. Davies and his internal security left, Nora locked the door. She was alone in the massive house. She didn't feel fear. She felt anger, and she felt a burning curiosity. A safe, she said aloud. She walked to her office. Behind a large abstract painting was her wall safe. It contained her father's inheritance papers, her mother's jewelry, and other important documents. She entered the combination. The heavy door swung open. Everything was untouched. Not this one, Nora murmured. She closed it. Her mind replayed Ethan's words. She'll never find that spot. She went back to the living room and sat down. Pulling up the security camera app on her phone, she had installed 3 cameras, one in the upstairs hallway, one in the living room, and one in the dining room. She reviewed the footage from the last hour. She saw herself arguing with Ethan. She saw Carol threatening her. She was looking for an anomaly, and she found it. While she was arguing fiercely with Ethan in the living room, Carol, standing behind him, had looked agitated. But her eyes weren't on Nora. They kept darting in one direction towards a corner of the dining room, specifically towards a massive, dark, wood wine cabinet. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. The wine cabinet. It was one of Ethan's first big purchases after they moved in. He said it was for investment and for entertaining important guests. Nora didn't drink alcohol and knew Ethan knew nothing about wine. To her, it was just a useless, expensive piece of furniture. Nora got up and walked to the dining room. The wine cabinet stood tall, its ornate glass doors locked. She remembered Ethan kept the key in a small bar-top drawer. She found the small key and opened it. Rows of dusty wine bottles greeted her, a few expensive ones. The rest cheap bottles with fancy-looking labels. She checked every corner. Nothing seemed out of place. She almost gave up. But then she remembered something. When she was cleaning, she recalled the back of the cabinet, sat flush against the wall, but now, looking at the very bottom shelf, she saw a tiny, unnatural gap. She pulled out all the bottles from the bottom rack. She felt the wooden back panel. It was solid, but when she knocked on it, the sound was different. One panel sounded hollow. It's a false panel. She tried to pull it, but it wouldn't budge. There had to be a hidden mechanism. She needed a professional. She called Mr. Davies again. "Daniel, I need help. I need a safecracker. Someone discreet and trustworthy, and I need them now." An hour later, her doorbell rang. A wiry, middle-aged man with a small tool bag stood there. He was introduced as Mr. Henderson. He didn't say much, just nodded as Nora explained the situation. He examined the wine cabinet, then took out a series of small, precise tools. "It's a sliding panel, ma'am." "Magnetic lock," he said quietly. Within minutes, there was a soft click. Mr. Henderson slid the wooden panel to the side. Behind it, embedded in the wall, was a dark, gray metal box. "A digital wall safe. Now for the hard part," he said, taking out a different device. Nora waited, her heart pounding. What was so important that Ethan would panic over it? What was the thing? Cash? Gold bars? Click! The sound was loud in the quiet room. Mr. Henderson turned to Nora. "It's open, ma'am." He pulled the heavy safe door open. Nora stepped forward and peered inside. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't cash or gold. It was a stack of folders. Her hands trembled as she pulled them out and laid them on the dining room table. First, several bank books for offshore accounts, all in names she didn't recognize. But the transactions were huge, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, moving in and out quickly. Second, 4 passports. 2 were for Ethan and Carol. But the other 2, the photos were of Ethan and Carol, but slightly altered. Different hairstyles, no glasses. And the names were fake. They were escape identities. Third, a thick stack of what looked like financial reports from the company where Ethan worked. But the numbers were all wrong. It looked like proof of embezzlement. And last, a thick, crimson-colored folder. It looked the most important. Nora opened it. The top sheet was an official document. Nora read the title, "Life Insurance Policy." Her heart felt like it stopped. She read the details. Name of insured, Nora Almira. Beneficiary, Ethan Whittia. Policy value, $20 million. Nora sank into a chair, her legs weak. The policy was issued 6 months ago, right when Carol started complaining about new, expensive medical treatments. Right when Ethan had suddenly become sweet and attentive, asking her to sign a stack of new investment papers for their future. Nora remembered the papers. She had signed them without reading them. She had trusted him. A cold dread snaked up her spine. This was no longer about insults or a parasitic lifestyle. This was a murder plot. They didn't just want her money. They planned to kill her, collect the insurance money, and flee the country with new identities. The ladle, the insults, the cat puke comment. It wasn't just random cruelty. It was part of the plan. A plan to make her depressed, stressed, unstable. Maybe they were planning to make her death look like a suicide. Nora looked at the marble ruins in her kitchen, the sledgehammer she had wielded. She suddenly realized that tonight, she hadn't just destroyed a countertop. She had just saved her own life. Nora stared at the policy. $20 million. Enough to make anyone kill. The air in the luxurious house felt thick and suffocating. She had just escaped her own murder. The thrown ladle wasn't just the peak of the abuse. It was a failed step in their plan. Her hands were still shaking, but now it was with a cold, pure rage. She picked up her phone. She didn't call the police. Not yet. She knew Ethan and Carol weren't stupid criminals. They were cunning. If she made one wrong move, they could disappear forever. She called the one person she could now trust completely. "Mr. Davies," Nora said, her voice steady, almost devoid of emotion. "I need you to come back to my house, right now. And please, don't come alone. Bring someone who's an expert in fraud. And something much, much bigger. Less than 40 minutes later, he arrived. This time, he was with a quiet man with sharp, intelligent eyes. Introduced as Mr. Antonelli, a former police detective turned private investigator specializing in complex white-collar crime. Nora led them to the dining room and pointed to the table where the contents of the safe were spread out. Fake passports, offshore bank records, embezzlement files, and in the center, the life insurance policy. Mr. Davies gasped. Mr. Antonelli, however, simply nodded, put on a pair of latex gloves, and began examining the documents. This policy is active, Mr. Antonelli said quietly. Purchased 6 months ago, premium paid in full for 1 year. The payment was wired from one of these offshore accounts. I don't know anything about those accounts, Nora said. Of course not, ma'am, said Mr. Antonelli. These are shell accounts for money laundering. Looking at these financial reports, he gestured to the company documents. Your husband has been embezzling from his employer. But that company is a family business, Nora said, confused. Mr. Davies, now looking over the documents, paled. My God, Nora! This company is a supplier for your family's main corporation, the one your father left you. Ethan was using his position to fraudulently inflate invoices and divert the difference into these accounts. He wasn't just stealing from his job, he was stealing from you. Nora felt sick. And the fake passports? An escape plan, Mr. Antonelli answered. After they got what they wanted, he paused and looked directly at Nora. And what they wanted? Miss, Elmira is right here in this insurance policy. They were planning to kill me. All signs point to that conclusion, Mr. Antonelli said grimly. The final step was to cash in this policy. 20 million is their biggest payday. Nora sat down, then remembered something. The investment papers. 6 months ago, he had me sign a stack of papers. I was busy. I trusted him. I just signed. The policy must have been slipped in there. A classic tactic, Mr. Antonelli said. And the soup? Nora continued, her mind racing. Tonight, Carol tasted it and freaked out. She said it tasted like cat puke. Did you taste the soup, Miss Elmira? No. I was getting a bowl, and then she threw the ladle at me. Did Carol add any last-minute ingredients? No, but... Wait. Ethan came home early this afternoon. He was in the kitchen alone for a while. He said he was making one of his mother's health drinks. He told me, Honey, all you have to do later is heat up the soup. Mom will love it. A deadly silence filled the room. Cyanide, Mr. Antonelli whispered. Or arsenic. Some poisons are odorless but have a very bitter or metallic taste in something creamy like soup. Carol, knowing the plan, tasted it to check. The taste was too obvious. She panicked, afraid you would taste it and become suspicious. So she created a diversion. She attacked you to stop me from serving the soup. Nora finished. To spill it. She sacrificed tonight's plan to avoid raising suspicion. And Ethan, added Mr. Davies. Turning up the TV wasn't just to ignore you. It was a signal to his mother that he wanted no part of the mess she was making. They failed. Nora closed her eyes. She felt like she had just unknowingly walked across a tightrope over a vast canyon. They'll try again, she said, her eyes snapping open, her anger hardening into steel. They're desperate. They'll realize I've found the safe. They'll do something reckless. Correct, said Mr. Antonelli. Then, Nora said, standing up, let's not let them be desperate. Let's give them hope. They're greedy. Greed is their weakness. Let's use that. They want money. We'll bait them with money. A small smile touched Mr. Antonelli's lips. I like the way you think, ma'am. Mr. Davies, Nora said to her lawyer. Freeze all our joint accounts. Block all credit cards. Make sure they don't have a cent to their names. Already on it, ma'am, he replied. Mr. Antonelli. Nora turned to the investigator. I want your team to wire the entire ground floor of this house with the best cameras and microphones you have. And I need the police, not patrol cars. I need the best team. Ready to move in silently for an arrest. Consider it done, said Mr. Antonelli. But what's the bait? Nora picked up her phone. The bait is me. I'm going to call Ethan, and I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. She walked to the kitchen and looked at the marble ruins. She touched the fading bruise on her temple. The pain was now her fuel. She wasn't going to run. She was going to face them. In her house, on a stage of her own making. Late into the night, the house was transformed. Mr. Antonelli's team worked with silent, professional efficiency. Button-sized cameras were hidden in decorations, behind paintings. Inside light fixtures, the ruined kitchen island was covered with a large white sheet, making it look like a monument to a disaster. Nora changed into an elegant but simple dress. She sat on the living room sofa and dialed Ethan's number. He answered on the third ring. What? His voice was harsh, panicked. The sound of traffic was in the background. Nora let her voice tremble, forcing a sob. A pause. This was the weak Nora he knew. Nora? What is it? I'm scared, she cried. I'm all alone in this house. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I lost my temper. I shouldn't have kicked you out. She could hear Ethan whisper to his mother. She's crying. She's sorry. Then Carol's voice. I told you she couldn't live without you. Yeah, well, you were wrong, Nora, Ethan said, his confidence returning. I know, honey, I know. Please, come back. I can't do this. Nora made her sobs more frantic. Did you find anything in the wine cabinet? Ethan asked suddenly. A test. Nora's heart pounded. The wine cabinet? You mean the alcohol? No, honey, I didn't touch it. I was just cleaning up the marble. I'm so sorry. Another pause. They bought it. They believed she was too stupid to find the safe. Listen, Nora, Ethan said. We have no money. You blocked all the cards. We can't even get a hotel. This was it. Money. Yes, the money, Nora said quickly. I know I was wrong. I'll make it right. I don't want a messy divorce. I'll prepare a settlement. I'll give you money. How much money? It was Carol's voice, sharp and clear. She had snatched the phone. $5 million, Nora said. In cash, a dead silence on the other end. She could picture their greedy eyes widening. It was enough for them to run, to start a new life. They would think she was panicking, trying to buy their silence. Are you serious? Ethan asked, back on the phone. Yes. Just come to the house tonight. We'll sign the divorce papers, a non-disclosure agreement, and I'll give you the cash. I have it ready. How do we know you're not lying? How do we know you didn't call the cops? Ethan asked, suspicious. The police? Nora let out a hysterical-sounding laugh. To arrest me for breaking my own countertop? Honey, I'm the one who's humiliated here. Please, just the three of us. Let's end this peacefully. After a brief, muffled discussion, Ethan agreed. Fine. We'll be there in an hour. Have the money ready. And don't try anything funny, Nora. I won't. Thank you. I'll make some soup. Your favorite, she added. She hung up. Her tear-streaked face was now a mask of cold resolve. They're on their way, she said quietly. Her voice picked up by a microphone connected to Mr. Antonelli's earpiece. She went to the kitchen and actually made soup. A simple, clear broth this time. She placed 3 bowls on the perfectly set dining table. Exactly 1 hour later, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Ethan and Carol, their faces trying to look calm, but their eyes burning with greed and hate. Come in, Nora said, her voice trembling slightly. I'm just heating up the soup. Our last supper. They stepped inside. They glanced at the sheet-covered island and smirked. thinking it a symbol of her regret. They had just walked into a prison of their own making. They sat at the dining table, the air thick with tension. The 3 bowls of clear, steaming soup sat untouched. "Why aren't you eating?" Nora asked softly, taking a spoonful of her own soup. Delicious. Nothing like my last batch, right? The one you said looked like cat puke. Carol flinched. "Or maybe," Nora continued, her eyes locking with Carol's, "you're afraid this soup has a certain taste, a bitter taste, like poison, perhaps?" The color drained from their faces. "What are you talking about?" Ethan hissed. "Enough games, Nora," he snapped. "Where are the papers?" "Of course," Nora said, sliding a folder across the table. Ethan snatched it and opened it. It was a divorce petition, but the attachments weren't what he expected. It was a list of offshore bank accounts, a list of embezzled funds. Where did you get this?" he stammered. Nora picked up her phone from the table. "You know, the walls in this house talk. The smoke detectors have eyes." She pressed play. The sound of Ethan's panicked whisper filled the room. "Mom, what about the thing? It's still in the safe." Ethan dropped the folder. "You recorded us?" "Of course," Nora said, standing up. She went to a cabinet and pulled out the contents of the safe, throwing them onto the table. The safe behind the wine cabinet. Nice idea, but not nice enough. She tossed down the fake passports, a lovely escape plan. And finally, she placed the crimson folder on the table. The life insurance policy. $20 million, she said, her voice dripping with ice. "Apparently my life has a price." That's when Carol exploded. "I should have killed you months ago," she shrieked, her face purple with rage. "I shouldn't have panicked. That soup should have finished you and your damn inheritance." "Mom, shut up," Ethan yelled, trying to silence her. "Why should I?" Carol screamed back, turning on her own son. "It's all your fault. You were too slow, too cowardly. If you'd just followed my plan, she'd have been dead 6 months ago. And we'd be rich. I was waiting for the right time." Ethan shot back, cornered and furious. "I was waiting for her to seem genuinely depressed, so it would look like a suicide. Your plan was reckless, Mom. Just like tonight, you ruined everything by throwing that ladle." Silence. They had confessed. "Thank you," Nora said quietly. They stared at her, confused. "Thank you for your confession." On cue, every door on the ground floor flew open. The front door, the side door, the patio doors. A dozen plainclothes officers led by Mr. Antonelli and uniformed police swarmed into the dining room. Ethan and Carol leaped from their chairs, their eyes wide with terror. They were trapped. "Good evening," a police captain said calmly. "Ethan and Carol Whittia, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and money laundering." Ethan stared at Nora, his face a mask of disbelief and hatred. "You set me up." Nora looked back, her expression unyielding. "You set yourselves up." The arrests were swift. Carol screamed hysterically as a female officer cuffed her. "She's the crazy one. She's the devil in a designer dress." Ethan, after the initial shock, simply deflated. As the cuffs clicked around his wrists, he pointed a shaking finger at his mother. "It was her. She planned everything. She made me do it." Carol, hearing this, turned on him. "You coward! You came to me with the plan. You're the one who found the insurance policy." "Enough," the captain barked. "Save the family drama for the judge." As they were being let out, a detective informed them. "By the way, all your offshore accounts were frozen an hour ago. The money has been seized as evidence of money laundering." It was the final blow. Their stolen fortune was gone. As they reached the front door, Ethan stopped and looked back at Nora one last time. His voice was a pathetic whimper. "Nora, help me. Please. I'm your husband." Nora walked slowly towards him. She stopped a few feet away. "You are not my husband," she said. her voice clear and steady for all to hear. My husband wouldn't let his mother assault me. My husband wouldn't turn up the TV while I was being hurt. She took one more step. "You're just a parasite," she whispered. "A parasite that failed to kill its host." His face crumpled. Those words hurt more than the handcuffs. "Take them away," Nora said to the officers. The door closed. Outside, the previously silent police sirens began to wail, announcing to the quiet, wealthy neighborhood that justice was being served. Nora walked to the window and watched the flashing lights disappear into the night. She took her first deep breath of freedom in 3 years. And then, she cried. Not tears of pain, but tears of profound relief. 1 year later, the glittering Jakarta skyline stretched out below the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nora's new office. This wasn't her father's company. It was her own. "The proposal from Company C is too risky," Nora said, her voice calm and authoritative. Her tailored business suit was sharp and professional. "We'll focus on acquiring Company B. Prepare the documents." "Yes, Miss Elmira," her team of executives replied in unison. In 1 year, Nora had not only secured her inheritance, she had multiplied it. She launched her own investment firm, specializing in tech startups and sustainable real estate. She was sharp, respected, and trusted no one blindly. That evening, in the sleek, minimalist kitchen of her new penthouse apartment, she decided to cook for herself. As she stirred a pot on the stove, a news report on the TV caught her attention. "A riot at the State Women's Correctional Facility was contained this morning," the newscaster said. "One inmate was reportedly killed during a conflict with another prisoner. The deceased has been identified as Carol Widya, a lifer convicted of conspiracy to commit murder." Nora stopped stirring. "According to witnesses," the reporter continued, "the fatal altercation began over a trivial matter, a dispute over meal rations. The victim allegedly tried to steal another inmate's bowl of cold soup. Nora turned off the stove. She felt no joy, no sadness, just a sense of final, ironic closure. She poured her fragrant broth into a beautiful ceramic bowl and sat at her dining table, overlooking the city lights. She was alone, but not lonely. She felt whole. Nora raised her spoon, remembering the heavy steel ladle that had started it all. The ladle that had shattered her old life but paved the way for her new one. "Life is like a soup," she murmured to herself. "You have to throw out all the rotten, poisonous ingredients, no matter how long they've been in the pot, to truly taste the richness of the broth." She took a sip. It was savory, warm, and clean. "Perfect," she said with a small smile, and continued her dinner in peace. The name on the glass door read, Elmira Capital. Inside, the atmosphere was one of quiet, focused energy. Nora Elmira, now in her early 30s, moved through the office with an air of earned authority. Her hijab was a stylish silk that complemented a sharp, navy blue power suit. The timid, anxious woman who once cried in her bathroom was a distant memory, a ghost from another life. She was a respected CEO, a shrewd investor, and a philanthropist, known for her work supporting shelters for victims of domestic abuse. Her life was ordered, peaceful, and prosperous. The ghosts of Ethan and Carol rarely visited her thoughts. Carol was a closed chapter, a name on a death certificate. Ethan was a number in the federal prison system, serving his 20-year sentence. He was, for all intents and purposes, gone. That was, until the letter arrived. It was forwarded by her lawyer, Mr. Davies, and it bore the postmark of a federal penitentiary in West Virginia. Her assistant, a bright young woman named Maya, had placed it on her desk with a questioning look. Nora recognized the handwriting immediately. Even after all these years, it was Ethan's. For a moment, just a moment, a flicker of the old cold dread touched her. She took a deep breath, the air in her corner office feeling suddenly thin. Then, she exhaled, and the feeling was gone. She was no longer that woman. She was the master of her own house now, in every sense of the word. With steady hands, she opened the envelope. The letter was several pages long, filled with cramped, looping cursive. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. "My dearest Nora," it began. He wrote of his profound remorse, of the years spent in contemplation. He claimed to have found God, to have spent every waking moment repenting for the terrible mistakes he had made. He blamed his mother's poisonous influence, his own weakness, and immaturity. He never once used the words crime, conspiracy, or attempted murder. It was all softened, blurred into a narrative of a good man led astray. "I was a boy then, Nora, not a man. I see that now. This place, it has changed me. It has broken me down and allowed God to rebuild me. I pray for you every day. I pray for your forgiveness, though I know I don't deserve it." Nora read the words without emotion. They were hollow, calculated. The core of the letter came at the end. "In 2 months, I will be eligible for my first parole hearing. I have been a model prisoner. I have served 7 years of my sentence. With good behavior, the board is considering me for early release. A letter of support from you, or even just a statement saying you do not oppose my release, would mean everything. It would be the ultimate sign of your forgiveness, a testament to the goodness of your heart that I so foolishly betrayed. I dream of a chance to live a quiet, honest life, to perhaps one day atone for the pain I caused." He wanted her to help him get out. He was using her own good name and reputation as a victim's advocate against her, framing it as a test of her capacity to forgive. The audacity was breathtaking. The old Nora might have been torn. She might have felt a flicker of pity, a pang of guilt over keeping the reformed man she once loved in prison. The new Nora felt nothing but a calm, cold resolve. This wasn't about forgiveness. Forgiveness was a private matter, something she had already dealt with in her own way to find her own peace. This was about justice and safety. A man like Ethan didn't change. He only learned new ways to lie. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Mr. Davies, it's Nora. I've received the letter from Ethan Widja. He's up for parole. I saw that coming." The lawyer's voice was grim. "What are your instructions, Miss Almira?" "I will be writing a victim impact statement to the parole board," Nora said, her voice firm. "I want to personally deliver it. Please make the arrangements, and I want you to draft a new, permanent restraining order to be served to him on the day of his release, whenever that may be. He is not to come within 500 yards of me, my home, or any of my offices. Ever. Consider it done." Mr. Davies replied, a note of admiration in his voice. That evening, Nora sat not in her office, but at the simple, elegant desk in her penthouse study. The city lights twinkled outside. She didn't write a letter filled with anger or pain. She wrote a statement of facts. She detailed the years of emotional abuse. She detailed the systematic embezzlement from her own family's company. She detailed the discovery of the fake passports, the offshore accounts, and the $20 million life insurance policy. She detailed the confession. His chilling words about waiting for her to seem genuinely depressed so it would look like a suicide. She concluded not with a plea, but with a professional assessment. "The man who wrote the letter to me is the same man who plotted my murder. His crime was not a mistake born of immaturity. It was a cold, calculated, long-term plan motivated by pure greed. He has demonstrated a profound capacity for deception and a complete lack of empathy. Releasing him would not be an act of mercy. It would be an act of negligence. He remains a danger not just to me, but to any person he might see as an obstacle to what he wants. I do not oppose his parole out of vengeance. I oppose it as a matter of public safety." She signed her name, Nora Almira. She folded the papers, slid them into a crisp envelope, and sealed it. She felt no lingering anger, no residue of fear. She felt only the quiet satisfaction of a necessary task completed. The past was not a weight she carried, but a foundation she had built upon. It had made her strong. It had made her wise. Her phone buzzed. A message from a man named David, an architect she had been seeing for a few months. A kind, genuine man who knew her past and respected her for the woman she had become. "Dinner at 8? I'll cook." Nora smiled. A real, warm smile that reached her eyes. She texted back, "Perfect. I'll bring the wine." She placed the sealed envelope on the corner of her desk to be mailed in the morning. Then, she stood up, turned off the light in her study, and walked back into the brightness of her living room, leaving the last ghost of her past sealed away in the dark.